It's Tuesday, November 1st. Welcome to The Big Story. I'm Haryanto Diman. Subscribe to the Straits Times channel so you will not miss an episode. The general election is revving up across the causeway. Malaysia's ruling Barisan Nasional coalition is poised to finally unveil its candidates this evening. Now, ST has learned that several Umno figures in the current caretaker cabinet are likely to be dropped from the candidate list, while popular Health Minister Khairy Jamaluddin has yet to secure a constituency. And for the first time, Umno will go into a general election where party president Zahid Hamidi is not its pick for Prime Minister. Instead, Umno Vice President Ismail Sabri Yaakob, as the incumbent caretaker PM, is the party's stated choice to continue leading the country. Joining me now from Kuala Lumpur is Malaysia Bureau Chief Shannon Teoh. First up, Shannon, the UMNO candidate list is expected to be unveiled this evening. What will you be watching out for?
So at a very basic level is about, who's in, who's out, and what that means for Barisan Nasional going into this election, this crucial election. So based on what our sources have told us, and we're waiting to confirm this tonight, obviously, is that up to 6 ministers and 3 deputy ministers are facing the drop. So there's nearly like 10 people who were very prominent in the Barisan Nasional government, right? Although it's likely that the final tally probably won't be as high. Maybe we're looking at about 60% of that will be dropped. Some of them might still make it into the cut. So as of yesterday, maybe one of the most high-profile names that are without a seat is caretaker Health Minister Khairy Jamaluddin. Now, we understand he has probably been given a very tough seat of Sungai Buloh in Selangor, which was won very handsomely by Pakatan Harapan back in 2018. So if it does get fielded there, it'll be much tougher than his previous seat, which was Rembau down in Negeri Sembilan. So there's also a question of whether there might be some surprise candidates for Barisan Nasional. There's been a lot of talk that a former past minister might be allowed to run on a BN ticket. And maybe the idea here is to take some voters away from PAS into Barisan Nasional in that seat. Now, at the end of the day, what we're also going to be looking at is how many candidates are going to be purged. Now, whether this means Zahid Hamidi is getting rid of dissidents in the party, because he's faced quite a fair bit of criticism internally since taking over leadership in 2018. It's been a bit of a rocky road for Zahid, but he's finally got what he wanted now, a new election, a fresh election, and maybe UMNO can start afresh.
Shannon, caretaker PM Ismail Sabri Yaakob has said that the biggest obstacle is his own party, UMNO. Just how divided is the party, and how will this play out on election day?
So it is pretty divided. I mean, even since 2018, when it first lost power, some segments in UMNO wanted to stay as a strong opposition party. Some wanted to try and support then Premier Mahathir. Some wanted to do whatever it took to get out of trouble with the law, because there was all these new charges being brought forward against UMNO. Of course, UMNO leaders say this is political persecution. But since then, we know that Najib has been jailed. The former Premier Najib has been jailed just a few months back. So even for the past couple of years, when UMNO finally took back power, there's been very clear factionalism between the so-called cabinet and court clusters, they call them. The latter being those who, as we were speaking, had graft charges, led by Zahid, Najib, these are the big figures, and also their supporters. Now, later on, the terms were kind of whitewashed, and to an extent, they would say PWTC cluster instead. And this is a reference to the party headquarters and Zahid being its president, and the Putrajaya cluster, referring to the seat of government led by Ismail Sabri. Now, it's the first time BN is going into an election where the caretaker prime minister, right, the incumbent is Ismail Sabri. He's a vice president in the party, not the president. So there are vying interests. And at the end of the day, the president, as the chairman of Barisan Nasional, he's the one that decides the candidates finally. I mean, it's a big negotiating process. By the end, it is Zahid who has to sign off on the letters of appointment for the candidates. So at the end of the day, if you look at the candidate slate, right, if there are a lot of those from the previous administration which were dropped, That tells us, the analysis here is that the President Zahid is looking to purge them because, well, to be honest, they haven't been particularly loyal to him. And these guys have made either very open or very thinly veiled attacks on the president in the past. Now, this includes Khairy, as we were speaking about. He, in 2018, challenged Zahid for the presidency but lost. Later on, he called on Zahid to step down more than once. He did it twice. Once was because there were a lot of, there was a wave of defections from Umno. And then the second time was because there were all these claims that Zahid was working with Anwar Ibrahim, is colluding with the opposition. So this is the kind of subtext, the kind of background that we're looking at. Now, one thing that can happen if Zahid pushes too hard, if he purges too many people from nominally the opposing camp, right, from so-called internal dissidents, this is going to heighten the risk of sabotage, right? And also, at the end of it, Zahid, Ismail, all these guys in Barisan Nasional, they've got to be careful. As much as they want to protect their personal interests, if the party doesn't win, then there's really nothing to protect. If you're out of government, then you lose everything. So it is a finely balanced game. There are probably changes going on right now, even just a few hours before the final candidate list is going to be announced.
BN UMNO's rivals will be watching the list with great interest tonight. Shannon, how are their preparations for the GE coming along?
So besides Barisan Nasional, Perikatan Nasional, which is led by former PM Muhyiddin Yassin, they're launching or unveiling their candidate list tonight as well. So they're basically neck and neck with Barisan Nasional as far as this process is going on. Pakatan Harapan has already been unveiling candidates since last week, but it doesn't mean that their process has been going very smoothly either. Parti Keadilan Rakyat, which is opposition leader Anwar Ibrahim's party, they unveiled their candidates last Friday, and quite significantly, we saw MPs who were previously aligned to Azmin Ali. Now, Azmin Ali was the deputy president in PKR until he defected, and that caused the fall of the Pakatan Harapan government back in 2020. So some MPs were aligned to Azmin previously, but didn't follow him out. They were still nonetheless purged as well. And we're talking about 4 or 5 leaders that were purged from the candidate list for this coming election. So Anwar's PKR has taken that step. They decided, we don't want you. Please step down, and they've gotten a new slate of candidates. So whether that causes the party to weaken as a result, because you've got these established leaders, right? They've got their supporters, they've got their machinery. Whether that causes the party to weaken is one question. There's also been some infighting over seats. One of them being in Kedah, right? The third party out of there are 4 parties, Pakatan Harapan, but another party, Amanah, they were unhappy with one of the seats being given to DAP, and there was a bit of an internal revolt in Kedah. So it's not going, all these preparations for an election will never go smoothly. There are always going to be people that are going to be upset at some decisions. And the question is how you can minimize the level of disgruntlement. One added element which makes things a bit more difficult this time around is that usually in a general election, nearly all the state assemblies will dissolve at the same time. And that opens up about 500 state seats for you to put candidates in. So sometimes if someone doesn't get to run for parliament, they can run for a state seat, right? And they can be promised many different things. You can trade horses around. This time, there's only 3 state assemblies that are going to be dissolved, which means 100 state seats instead of 500. So we're looking at about 400 people more who are going to be disappointed as compared to previous campaigns. So that's a lot to manage if you're a party leader. So it's not a position I want to be in, I'll tell you that.
Shannon, thank you for your perspectives. Malaysia Bureau Chief Shannon Teoh in Kuala Lumpur. In other news, now might be the time to make your money work harder, especially with inflation rising. One after another, Singapore's 2 biggest banks have increased the interest rates on their flagship savings accounts. For those who qualify, DBS Multiplier account holders will earn higher interest of 4.1% a year, while OCBC 360 account customers will earn 4.65% interest a year. Communications and Information Minister Josephine Teoh opened the Straits Times' inaugural Asia Future Summit this morning, where discussions are focusing on some of Asia's most pressing questions. Other speakers at the day-long summit include Malaysia's caretaker Finance Minister Tengku Zafrul Aziz. And get ready for a blast from the past. The Backstreet Boys are making their way to our shores in 2023. The American boy band will be performing at the Singapore Indoor Stadium on February 22nd. Now, ticket prices start at $168, with pre-sale tickets going on sale on November 7th and general tickets on November 10th. Those are top stories today. Visit straitstimes.com for more news and our YouTube channel for more videos. Subscribe by hitting the red button below. I'm Haryanto Diman. Join us tomorrow for more stories on The Big Story.